It's been a pretty easy, just relaxing week for me. Been sitting on the couch, enjoying some wild card games. But you know what? There's a certain team that actually has to suit up finally for the first time since, let's say, Christmas. So with that being said, it's time to get serious and actually lock in, because here we are. The wild card round is over. We are here to recap it and then look ahead to a little bit of divisional round weekend as well. This is going to be a jam-packed episode. Here we go. Welcome in. I am Sam Gold. And man, we don't have a 2-minute drill this week. So this is just going to be a lot talking about these games. And overall, before we get into the games itself, I mean, I got to be honest, I wasn't expecting, because ever since we've had the 7 playoff teams instead of 6 with 2 byes, now it's just 1. Honestly, these wildcard games have been very underwhelming, and I think the 2-7 matchup, for the most part, has usually sucked. There's only been one upset, and that was last year, Packers-Cowboys. So, overall, I wasn't too excited about these games, and they did not deliver. But we're still here to talk about a lot that went on. But before we get into that really quickly, we do have our weekly comment section segment that we do, which is comment down below your bold takes of the week. And we got a lot of comments this time. Thank you guys for reaching out. We appreciate it. But the winner bold take was Schlumpko 7091. Bold prediction: Mr. Mara, who's the owner of the Giants, will not follow this warning at 8:07 in the video. And there was a huge banner flown by on a plane around the stadium that said, Mr. Mara, please fire everybody. And yeah, to a lot of people's shock, they kept both Brian Daboll, which was fine, but they kept the GM Joe Schoen as well. But there you go, shout out. And if you guys want to be shouted out on the next week's episode, comment down below your bold take on this week's episode, and hey, maybe you'll be the winner. We'll pin you and shout you out. So there you go. Other than that, let's get into the first wildcard game now. I am going to go in order except for this first one here, because it pissed me off so much that I need to talk about it first before I lose all my other thoughts. It happened last night. Vikings-Rams, Monday Night Football. The Rams come out on top, 27-9. Now, overall, I didn't do that great in my predictions this week. I was 3-3. There was a few teams where I really gave like my last hope for, and this was one of them. I picked the Vikings to win it. I said last week that I was an idiot for believing they could actually have a chance to get the 1 seed. And, of course, they went out and just got destroyed by the Lions. I knew in the back of my head that the Rams had a good chance of winning this game. But I picked the Vikings just because I'm rooting for them. And I'm so sick of the same result over and over and over again. And I'm a Chiefs fan, so I shouldn't really care. But look, my brother's a diehard Vikings fan. I grew up watching the Vikings closely along with him. Al, behind the camera here, is a Vikings fan. Vikings fans are nice people. I like the uniforms. I think their history is cool. I like some of their players. I think the league is more fun when they do well. And this is why, and it's hard too, because I like the Rams, and I'm gonna give the Rams their props, don't worry. But, God, 27-9. You win 14 games. You are 1 game away from the 1 seed, 1 game away from the almost the same exact record you had in 1998, which is the best Vikings team, and it didn't even make the Super Bowl. What's worse? Just the fact that obviously you blew an entire season in 1 game, or the fact that you did it at Cardinals Stadium. Who would have told you after everything that just happened this entire year, all the ups and downs, all the great memories, Sam Darnold coming out of nowhere, 14 games. Yeah, your season's going to end in State Farm Stadium. Like, just throw it away in the trash. Nobody cares. And, oh, great, they're such a fun regular season team. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, 1 year from now, 10 years from now, 100 years from now, you're going to look back and be like, well, what else did they do? They did nothing. I mean, we saw the graphic. They are the oldest franchise on all major 4 American sports to not win a championship since 1961. And I bet your ass they're probably up there for the most winningest franchise to not win a ring as well. And shit like this happens. I mean, I don't know what pisses me off more. The way they lost yesterday, or that stupid 4th and 7 or whatever the fuck it was, with Kirk Cousins against the Giants, where he just lofts it to the right for 3 yards and is like, yep, everything we worked hard for, 13 wins, a really fun season, close games, Kirk Cousins' best season ever, I'm on Netflix quarterback, yep, just going to throw it away with a little dump off from the most important moment of our franchise in the 2020s. Yep, I guess not. It's just ridiculous. I mean, Sam Darnold took 9 sacks yesterday. And look, props to the Rams defense. They have been phenomenal lately. Their pass rush is really coming into their own. Their defensive coordinator, Shula, he's been very, very underrated this year, and he's going to get a lot of looks now. 9 sacks is great, and that's a sign of a good defense, obviously. But at the same time, if you're just watching the game, at least 5 of those sacks was purely on Sam Darnold, not looking at clear open receivers, being scared, and just holding on to the ball way too long, taking sacks, getting absolutely destroyed in the pocket. It's just ridiculous. Like, I wasn't expecting Sam Darnold to take him to a Super Bowl or anything, but why? It's almost better off if Sam Darnold just sucked like we all thought he did, and this never happened. Because at this point, what's the point of having all this hope? Like, I'm seriously considering doing this podcast next year and just never talking about the Vikings. Because what is the point? Seriously, what is the point at the end of the day? If they're going to have great seasons and literally never do anything with them, it's going to be the same outcome. They're never going to rile me in anymore. They're never going to do that to me anymore. And I'm sure Vikings fans are like, yeah, dude, we've been dealing with this our whole lives. Welcome to the club. And I'm a Chiefs fan, so like, it's just annoying to watch a team that is good a lot of the time, and then you just know what's going to happen at the end of the day, and then it does happen. And it sucks. It sucks to watch, and I'm so sick of it. And their defense was terrible in the first half. And the worst part of it was, you know, their defense actually locked down the Rams in the second half, only gave up 3 points, and they got chance after chance to actually do something. And Sam Darnold was ruining it. I know their right tackle got injured, and that definitely hindered their offensive line play as well, but just sucks to watch. Let me give some props to the Rams, though. Absolutely. Did a phenomenal job, especially on offense in the first half. Matt Stafford, very clean. He was kind of whatever at points this season, but if you get a Matt Stafford that throws for about 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 turnovers, you're going to have a pretty good offense in that game. And that was without Cooper Kupp really doing anything, which, quiet storyline, he's kind of faded away the rest of the season. I presume it's mostly because he's just dealing with an injury. But overall, I mean, the Rams defense was phenomenal. Jared Verse absolutely deserves Defensive Rookie of the Year, and that touchdown, that fumble recovery, just the icing on the cake for that. So great job. I probably should have known that the duo of a veteran coach in Sean McVay, who's already won a ring, and a veteran quarterback in Matt Stafford, who's already won a ring, is probably more prime to win a home playoff game, especially after everything that happened in Southern California. I'm sure they were extra motivated as well. So I'm not shocked that this happened. I'm more just annoyed and pissed off because I like the Vikings, and I have people in my life that like the Vikings. And to watch this happen year after year, like I'm almost trying to figure out what's worse, being a Jets fan, where the only hope you truly have is in the offseason, and then the second they step on a football field, you're like, oh yeah, it's the Jets, they suck, who cares? But the Vikings, on the other hand, it's just 14-3, 13-4, 11-6, 10-7, like every other year. And it's just like, who cares? It's just another waste of a year. So it's just, it's tough to watch. And yeah, goodbye to the Vikings. Truly goodbye to the Vikings, because I really don't know how much more often I would even care to talk about them. Because why does it matter? Why does it matter if this is going to happen? I don't care if J.J. McCarthy is coming in. Oh, they're going to turn a new leaf. Great. They can go 17-0, and I'm still not going to believe it until they actually do something. So there you go. Let's go all the way back to our Saturday 4:30 game, Texans-Chargers. And another game I got completely wrong. I picked the Chargers to win. I thought it was going to be a close game. Both opposites. The Texans won, and it was a blowout. Really in the second, third, and fourth quarter, because the Chargers were up 6-0, and they were looking pretty solid, but the second they started turning the ball over and Justin Herbert was losing confidence, you just felt a shift happening. And the Texans defense, I mean, props to them. Like, you're talking about the Rams defense. The Texans defense gave CJ Stroud ample opportunities to really bounce back after not only an entire regular season of, kind of a sophomore slump, but he also started off shaky in this game. And I think the difference between a middling quarterback and an actual good franchise quarterback is what you saw on CJ Stroud this past weekend. Because, sometimes if your confidence is kind of shot throughout the whole season and you get off to kind of a rocky start in a home playoff game, you might start to get in your head a little bit. But the fact that the Texans defense was able to make so many great plays and CJ Stroud was able to just be like, you know what, I'm getting these opportunities, I'm lucky for my defense, and I'm going to go out there, button up, and play better football. That's the sign of a good, confident leader and a solid franchise quarterback. I know he's not had the best season, but that really boosted my confidence in the Texans. Now, I was not shattered on CJ Stroud at all after this season. I recognize it was mostly just a slump. I still think he's going to be great. But this was really nice to see. The fact that you won 2 playoff games in your first 2 seasons is already a huge step. Now, I know they're going to be disappointed if they go into Kansas City and lose for a second time this season, but I think this was a really, really nice bounce-back game for CJ Stroud, especially in the second half. But with the Chargers, Justin Herbert, there's that infamous stat going around so far the last few days, the fact that Justin Herbert had 4 interceptions in this game, and that's more interceptions in one game than he had for the entirety of the regular season. That's one of the most Charger stats you could have of all time. There were plenty of people I talked to in the offseason that said, look, now that they have Jim Harbaugh, their defense is better, their offensive line, I think they're going to be a real force to be reckoned with in these playoffs. And I told them, that's nice and all. On paper, great. I mean, the Chargers are one of the best teams on paper almost every single year. But as a Chiefs fan and just an observer of the Chargers every single season, it's like, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. And I even picked the Chargers in this game. I was confident. But it was just such a perfect ending to a Chargers season where, of course, they had hope. It's kind of similar to the Vikings as well. But, like it doesn't matter at the end of the day if you got Jim Harbaugh. And I'm sure they'll get better, of course. They have a lack of weapons at wide receiver. The fact that Ladd McConkey had like 90% of the receiving yards on that entire team in that game is insane. And they definitely need to improve their run game as well. But, look, there's a conversation to be had with Justin Herbert. Is he a bad quarterback? Absolutely not. He is very talented. I still think at his best, definitely top 10 quarterback. But look, now we have a 2-game sample size in the playoffs. One half of football, phenomenal. Another half of football, absolutely terrible. And then this year, 4 interceptions. So all I'm saying is, you could take, let's say, here's the thing. You could try to take a player off the Chargers, but you can't take the Chargers out of a player. And as much as Justin Herbert might be a great player on any other team, it's not going to happen on the Chargers. I'm sorry. It's just, so many of these teams, I'll just believe it when I see it. And that was just another terrible ending to a pretty solid season. And I am sure that everybody is going to be picking them to be good next year. I'm going to go out and say it right now. I'm going to pick them to be 8-9. That's just such a Chargers thing to happen. And they're going to go back into irrelevance for another year. And then I'm sure they'll draft some great player or get some guy in free agency and then make the playoffs again and then choke. So that's really how I feel about the Chargers. Good thing the Texans actually went out there and won a playoff game because, man, people were doubting them, including me. So good job on the Texans. All right. Steelers-Ravens was the Saturday night game. I was very close on this prediction-wise. I picked the Ravens to win 29-13. The Ravens won 28-14. So finally I get something close. What I'm going to be talking about is a little bit less about the game itself because it's pretty predictable. I felt like the Ravens comfortably were going to win by 2 scores at home. They were clearly the better team. Lamar's the better quarterback. The Steelers were absolutely spiraling out of control in the final month of the season. So everything that happened in the game, I expected. But now it's time to have a conversation about the Steelers because, great, that's a great streak for you, Mike Tomlin. What is it, 18 straight years being a head coach, not having a losing record? Awesome. That's fine. And I'm not saying you're a bad coach by any means. You're one of the best coaches of all time. But it's kind of similar to Andy Reid on the Eagles, where at some point, yes, even if you're giving them winning seasons and everybody knows you're a good coach, if things are just completely stale in the playoffs and nothing's changing, and you know that you actually have a chance if you make some major changes to actually go out and win a Super Bowl, at this point, I feel like you just got to do it. You got to pull an Andy Reid with Mike Tomlin. And it sucks because Mike Tomlin just extended his contract. And I think the Steelers have no shot of releasing him or anything or firing him. But, I think there needs to be conversations to be had because, I think when Mike Tomlin finally gets out of Pittsburgh, it's going to be on his own terms. But I think at some point, I know Steelers fans agree with me. You got to ask yourself, what are these pointless accolades for if it really means nothing at this point? You haven't won a playoff game since 2016 against the Chiefs. I don't know if anybody remembers that game. The Steelers scored 6 field goals and beat us, and Eric Fisher had a holding call on a 2-point conversion. That feels like 20 years ago at this point. Yeah, that's the last time the Steelers won a playoff game. So it's been a while. And, I'm watching these games and it's just at this point, we kind of know what's going to happen whenever they make the wild card round. They're just going to get their ass kicked. I mean, there was a stat where you go through their last 6-7 playoff losses and every game they're down at least 14-0 before they score their first offensive touchdown. And it's just you have no game plan to come out. You got no good quarterback anymore. It's just very stale, boring, predictable. And as much as people love Mike Tomlin, and he's obviously going to be in the Hall of Fame one day, and he's a great coach, there's nothing wrong with needing a new change for a franchise. So, a lot of tough conversations to be had here with the Steelers. The Ravens, I think Lamar Jackson, I don't think he proved that much in this game. I was expecting him to lose. He had more to lose than to gain with this game. Obviously, if he goes out and somehow loses to the Steelers, nobody's believing in Lamar anymore. But, I mean, he had a good game. Props to him. Derrick Henry was awesome. And I think next week is really where I'm going to put my eye on Lamar and how he performs in the playoffs. So I'm not going to speak too much on the Ravens until next week. All right. Let's move on to kind of how the Texans, I feel like at this point, always host the Saturday 4 o'clock game on Wild Card Weekend. It feels like Buffalo always hosts the 1 o'clock game on Sunday. And here we are, Broncos-Bills. It feels yearly at this point that they play a shitty quarterback, and it's a team that's pretty much undeserving of making the playoffs, and they just get to wail on them at home. Nobody cares. So, you know what I mean? They've played Phillip Rivers and the Colts, Mac Jones and the Patriots, Skylar Thompson and the Dolphins, and then Mason Rudolph and the Steelers. And now here we are, Bo Nix and the Broncos. I've been seeing on Twitter, oh gosh, I don't want to bring this up again, but I have to just one more time. I know I kind of sent off the Bengals for the rest of the season, but I can't help myself. I was on Twitter, and of course, Bengals fans just so full of themselves, posting if Joe Burrow's in these playoffs, maybe these games would be close. I don't think the Broncos deserve to be in there. I'm sorry. Actually, try to have a good defense and better coaching if you want to be in the playoffs. But anyway, I just thought it was funny. 31-7 was the final score. Bills won, obviously. I don't really have much to say about the Broncos, to be honest. There were some people out there that are ooh, they could upset the Bills. No, the Bills always take care of business in the wild card. Josh Allen has very rarely had a bad game in the playoffs, which is kind of funny because they've only been to one championship game. I didn't learn too much from this game, to be honest. I mean, good for the Broncos. They had a nice season. That touchdown pass was fun in the beginning. It gave us 2% of hope, I guess. But other than that, I really don't have many takeaways from this game. Kind of like with the Steelers, you expect a much better team to take care of business. And Josh Allen had a really, really nice highlight to Ty Johnson on that 4th and 1. And I'm going to save all my Bills-Ravens discourse. I have a lot to say about the Bills, but I'm going to save it for next episode when we do our predictions, because as a Chiefs fan, watching Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson has definitely got my wheels turning. So we'll save it. Good on the Bills. I really don't have much to say. Let's move on. Packers-Eagles, 22-10. The Eagles come out on top at home. I thought the Packers would give a little bit more of a fight. I'll give the Eagles their props first, though. Their defense was phenomenal. Their pass rush was great. And you know what? I know people are Jalen Hurts, he just really hasn't looked the same. I'm a little bit worried about him turtling up in the playoffs. I'll give him a slight pass just because he was out the last couple of games. He might be a little bit rusty. Maybe he sees that the defense is playing really well for him, so he doesn't want to take too many risks yet if he doesn't have to. I know A.J. Brown, there was that whole controversy with A.J. Brown reading that book on the sideline. I thought it was hilarious. Let the dude chill out. There's been so many controversies this season with, A.J. Brown and the Eagles. It's just dude, you don't know the locker room. Calm down. It's just, people always try to make something out of nothing, but... Look, at the end of the day, obviously Saquon had a solid game once again. He was very selfless on that breakaway that could have been a touchdown. I thought that was a very smart play. His explanation was great afterwards as well. The fact that he mentioned, why would I want to have extra plays in this game and get guys possibly on defense injured? They're already tired, so you might as well rest up, take a knee, and win the game. That is a true team player right there, and that was one of the main things I was eyeing going into this game. I was like, look, Saquon sat, he didn't take the record, they wanted to rest him for the playoffs, now here we are, is he going to deliver? And he had another very, very good game. So I think that is scary, especially if Jalen Hurts goes out and throws a little bit better in the next game, maybe runs a little bit more as well. Mix that with the defense playing well, they play the Rams next week. That could be a good recipe. So the Eagles go out and take care of business, get their first playoff win since the NFC Championship 2 years ago with the Packers. I don't know. I don't know why I expected it to be a better game, because the second the game started, I was just like, oh yeah, they're not built to go into Philly right now with all the injuries and compete, because not only did they have the injuries going into the game, but Elton Jenkins, their best offensive lineman, was out. What was it, after the first quarter maybe? It was pretty early on in the game. And then the receivers, man, just were starting to drop like flies. Romeo Doubs, I think, had a concussion. Jaden Reed got banged up. And it's if you're going against one of the best secondaries in the NFL, are you really expecting Dontavian Wicks and Bo Melton to go out there and do your dirty work? It's just not going to happen. And look, I think it's almost better with all the injuries that they didn't go out and win the game. I know this is going to sound weird, but just as a football fan, do we really want to watch a completely banged up Packers team go into Detroit and just already know what's going to happen? That's going to be such a boring game. So I felt like, even though it's very unlucky for Green Bay, this was the game they needed to just go out, recuperate next offseason, maybe go get a better receiver. I mean, Jordan Love overall, I would rate his season a B-. I think similar to CJ Stroud, there was high hopes going into this year. And it's not necessarily he was bad, because he actually had a pretty good stretch of games towards the end of the season with no interceptions. But he just didn't show anything significantly better. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens this offseason. And yeah, congrats to the Eagles. And that's it. We got one more game now. Commanders, Bucks. I don't know why I didn't see this coming, because I did pick the Bucks to win, and my explanation was I'm going to go with the home team that has more experience, the slightly better quarterback this season, possibly Mike Evans. You know what I mean? That was kind of my explanation, but look, kind of similar. I'm not comparing it to the 2018 Chiefs entirely, but kind of similar in that way. It's look, the Commanders can have their flaws, but Jaden Daniels is special. I don't care what anybody says. There was a moment where they finally had the ball back when it was tied 20-20 with a few minutes to go, where I just thought to myself, and I said this on stream, shout out when we're streaming, we were watching the game as well. I said, yeah, that's it. They're going to go down and kick a field goal easily. I am that confident in Jaden Daniels and the close, sometimes lucky, but good wins that they've had this year. I think the whole team had the confidence on their side, and they didn't even particularly do anything crazy on that final drive, which is a good thing. It really, really reminded me of how the Chiefs just kind of wheel and deal, dink and dunk, do exactly what they need to do, don't overthink it, take what they're given, and Jaden Daniels didn't feel like he had to go out there and play hero ball. He just did exactly what he's been going through all the reps this entire season, was focused on one thing and one thing only, get down the field and score points. And that is a huge confidence boost if you're a Washington fan for this season and just the future. Because, man, Jaden Daniels, what a great story. I mean, the fact that the Commanders have been through so much this season with all the close games. They win 12 games, just like the Chiefs did with their first year with Mahomes, and win a playoff game, their first in 20 years. I mean, man, they got a bright future. So even if they go and lose to Detroit, this was an A+ season for them. I am very happy. And look, it sucks for the Bucs. Like, this was one of those games where I really liked both teams this year. I liked both quarterbacks, and I was going to be very happy for whatever team won, and I was going to be pretty sad for whatever team lost. And, you know, shockingly, this was the only home team that lost this weekend, which is kind of a crazy stat. But Baker, man, I mean, he kind of had a vintage Baker game because, look, they even had the stats up. Their Captain Fear mascot was, like, holding up, yeah, he's leading the league in passing yards. He's leading the league in touchdowns. Oh, he's leading the league in interceptions. Shit! And then he threw the thing away. Like, yeah, that was kind of the game that Baker Mayfield had. Like, he made some hero plays. He had that great run, but then he also fumbled the ball in the fourth quarter, which completely shifted the momentum after their own defense got a stop on the Commanders, and then the Commanders get the ball back in the red zone and immediately scores. So there's just moments where Baker is way on top, his ceiling is great, and then he'll just make a dumb mistake. I'm not blaming this on Baker, though, at all. I think their defense, the Bucs defense, other than a couple crucial fourth down stops that they had, they just give up a lot of yards, and their pass rush isn't amazing. Their run defense is great. Vita Vea is one of the best players in the NFL. I don't care what anyone says. He's awesome. But, yeah, it's just kind of a typical game where both teams are pretty evenly matched, and whichever team was going to expose the biggest flaw of that other team, the greatest, was going to end up winning, and that's exactly what the Commanders did. They took advantage of a Baker Mayfield turnover, which he leads the league in, and then goes out on a final drive and exploits their defense, which isn't very good. So I felt like this was a pretty normal, good matchup. That was a close game. It was a lot of fun to watch. So we'll see what happens. I mean, congrats to the Commanders, though. That was just like... It's just crazy to think, like, there's people my age that just never saw them win a playoff game. And it's like, it's fun to see every year a team like that go out and do something. And now you got that. Like, I just remember what it felt like after the 2018 season for the Chiefs and just be like, yes, obviously it sucked that we lost in the championship game. But, like, Commanders fans, if you're listening, like, enjoy this offseason no matter what happens, because this is a rare period in time where it's just euphoric. It's just all hope. Sky's the limit. You get to just think all these crazy positive thoughts going into next year. You got your guy. Like, it's just a great feeling to have in sports in general. So that was definitely awesome to see. But there you go. Just 6 games. It's only going to whittle down from here. We got 4 next week. I mean, as sad as it is, we are in a very exciting time in the NFL season. A lot of people say divisional round weekend is the best weekend in sports. I may have to agree with that. We'll see. But, yeah, that's it. We are going to do our prediction episode, so be on the lookout for that probably about a day after this is posted. But, yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to comment down below your bold take as well. Like and subscribe. Follow us on TikTok and Instagram at First and Gold. And that's it. We'll see you guys next episode. Goodbye.